In World of Warcraft Classic, the roleplay elements of Warcraft were at their all-time high, and that was often reflected in some of the quest rewards throughout the leveling journey. For Hardcore, some of these quest items proved to be quite useful for players leveling to 60, and this is what this video is here to discuss. Here are 5 of the best quest rewards for Hardcore Classic WoW that will be useful for any players on their way to level 60. First, to start off this list, we have the Noggin Fogger Elixir, which is rewarded from a quest of the same name from Marin Noggin Fogger in Tenaris, as well as being purchasable from him after the completion of the quest. This elixir has a few uses. First, it can turn you into a skeleton for 10 minutes, which not only looks cool, but also gives you underwater breathing for the next 10 minutes. This is super useful for non-warlocks who don't get water breathing when they have to tackle some of the occasional underwater quest. The second use for this elixir is that it makes you slightly smaller for 10 minutes, which has a few very niche uses and makes your hitbox smaller. The third though is a slow fall effect, which can be pretty useful for certain escapes, or can be a last ditch effort if you don't have any limited invulnerability potions when falling from a cliff. While it is not a reliable way to survive fall damage, it can be better than nothing, and many players will likely already have this elixir in their bag for the cosmetics of being a skeleton. Since most players make their way through Tenaris while leveling, there's no reason not to pick some of these up. Continuing, on to the second item on the list, we have the Bag of Marbles, which is for Alliance players only and is rewarded from the Gold Dust Exchange quest in Elwyn Forest. The Bag of Marbles is an item with 10 charges and a 1-minute cooldown that, when used, reduces your target's chance to hit by 25%. This is a super strong effect that can either save you when you are trying to take down very hard enemy bosses or elites, or can enable you to take on much more difficult enemies when you usually couldn't. This item isn't only useful for leveling though, since it can also be used on high level bosses in raids or dungeons, both of which have certain encounters that can be made much easier with the help of the marbles. The 25% reduced hit chance doesn't seem like a lot, but in practice it is very strong and results in enemies usually missing you more often than 25% of the time. Now, at the third spot, we have the really sticky glue, 10 of which are rewarded from the quest, A Solvent Spirit in Durotar for the Horde. What this item does is root the target in place for 10 seconds if they aren't immune to CC, and is a super strong getaway tool for any class. Since this item will always root the target as long as they can be rooted, as well as being ranged and instant cast, it is super useful for every class, and all Horde players should pick this up. This item can easily save your life if you are getting chased by enemies you cannot kill, and I myself have had this save me a multitude of times. Additionally, it can be used to assist in defeating enemies when you need to channel something like a bandage or an evocate that you couldn't get off otherwise, and overall proves to be very useful in many scenarios. Missing out on the glue would be a massive blunder without a doubt. Then, the fourth item on this list is going to be the Slumber Sand, 5 of which are rewarded from the quest A New Plague in Tearsfall Glades for the Horde. What this item does is put the target to sleep for 20 seconds and wakes them up if they take any damage. This is super strong and essentially is a better sticky glue in most scenarios, since it is still ranged but lasts longer and prevents enemies with ranged attacks from hitting since they are fully CC'd and not just rooted. Additionally, another item exists in the game for Alliance and Horde players that is slightly better and has the same effect, this being the magic dust that drops from the Dust Devils in Westfall at a 5% drop rate. Both of these items are very strong forms of CC that can either save your life or let you take on encounters that you wouldn't be able to take on otherwise. They even can be used in some late game content, like in the Major Domo Executus fight for example, which you can use this stuff to CC some of the ads. Every Horde player needs to pick up some of the Slumber Sand while leveling, and Alliance players wouldn't be wrong in going out of their way to get a few magic dust from Westfall just in case. Now, the last item for this list that is extremely strong is the Light of Aloon for Alliance players, which is rewarded from the Mage Summoner quest in Ashenvale. This item gives the player 10 seconds of immunity to all forms of damage, and should be unskippable for all Alliance players. The reason why this item is so strong is not only for the survivability it gives you to run away, but also its capability to be macroed in with your Hearthstone, which also has a 10-second cast time. essentially allowing any class to have a one-time use free Hearthstone out of trouble, similar to what Paladins can do on non-hardcore realms. This is easily one of the most valuable items in all of hardcore for how strong it is. But since you only get one, you don't want to waste it on a situation that could easily be avoided otherwise. Not only can this item be used while questing though, but it can also be used during endgame raids and dungeons if there is a mechanic like a dot that will kill you unless you have that 10 seconds of invincibility. The only downside of this item is that it shares a cooldown with other potions, which can be very bad if you use something like a health or mana potion not expecting to need the light of Aloon, which can result in you dying despite it being in your bags. This needs to be noted when you have this item, but regardless, it is still insanely strong and cannot be skipped. And that concludes 5 of the most useful quest items for WoW Classic Hardcore. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to like and subscribe to see more content like this. If there are any videos you would like to see in the future, let me know in the comments below. Anyways, I'm out.